If you really wanted to study grammar, verb tense could become a complicated topic. For what we're doing here, however, we can actually keep it pretty simple. To get our verb tenses right, all we really need is a good gut feel for what is the present, past, and future tense. So if I say I run or I am running, that means it's going on right now. Will run indicates the future, and ran, have run, and had been running all indicate the action occurred in the past. When it comes to catching verb tense errors in a sentence, you just need to make sure that your verb tenses are logical and consistent. If the sentence wants you to have a specific past tense or future tense, there will usually be a pretty big clue in the very beginning of the sentence. So in this case, the sentence talks about the migrations that have swept through history. So they're establishing what we're talking about occurred in the past. Consequently, all of the verbs that also occur in this topic need to occur in the past, or be the past tense. So when it says maybe none is more concentrated, is present tense, and it's not consistent with the have, which is past tense. So the simple fix is to change the is into a was. And now all of my verbs are consistent. This sentence begins by talking about what Congress will try and do in the future. And what they're trying to change is the amount of grain farmers are allowed to grow. So we have this conflict. Will is about the future, and are is about the present. So it doesn't make sense that tomorrow they're going to pass regulations on what we could do today. We have to make sure that what they do in the future affects the future. So we simply change the are, which is present tense, to a future tense, something like will be. And now what they're doing in the future will affect the future. I said before that all we really have to be concerned about is whether something is past, present, or future tense. And for the most part, that's true. It doesn't get much more complicated than that. However, there is one exception, and it has to do with the helping verb had. When you have had as a helping verb, and a helping verb is a verb that comes immediately before another verb, so in this case, eating, the had and the had been is used to show that there were two actions that happened in sequential order and both happened in the past. Which means if you have had been as a helping verb, you have to make sure you have two verbs in that sentence. So while the phrase I ate the pizza is a complete sentence, and so is I have eaten pizza, that's also a complete sentence. The phrase, I had been eating pizza, is not a complete sentence because we only have one verb. To fix this sentence, you could do one of two things. You could get rid of the had been and you'd replace it with something simple like was. So I was eating pizza, that's fine in a complete sentence. But if you keep the had been, you're going to have to add a second verb. So you could say something like, I had been eating pizza when you called. And now we have two verbs, eating and called, both happened in the past, and it's clear because of the had been that the eating was occurring before the call came. We've said in earlier videos that every sentence needs a verb. If a sentence has a that, you're usually going to need a second verb. And in contrast, if a sentence has in, for, or of, you're generally not going to want a verb to follow either one of those prepositions. And we can see this with some simple examples. If I say, I believe in hard work, that's a complete sentence. That's fine. However, if I say, I believe that hard work, hopefully you should feel that's not a complete sentence, because the that clarifies that you don't simply believe in hard work, there's something about hard work that you believe in. To make it a complete sentence, you have to say something like, I believe that hard work is important, where the is the second verb following the that. Let's look at one more example. In this sentence, this book shows cars. That's a complete sentence. And I guess we could visualize that the book is something like a book a child would read, where it just has pictures of cars. Now let's look at the two following sentences, where we have a book that shows cars polluting, and then a book that shows cars are polluting. In the bottom sentence, we have this extra verb, are. So what's the difference between showing cars polluting and showing cars are polluting? Well, the top example is actually similar to the blue example below, where showing cars polluting is like saying you're showing pictures of cars polluting. But in the bottom example, we're talking about what cars are doing. We're not showing pictures of cars polluting, but there might be some kind of graph or analysis that describes exactly how or what cars are doing to do the polluting. So there is a subtle difference in meaning between the two blue sentences. More importantly, however, we have two verbs in the third sentence. We have shows, and then we have are. We have a verb doing a verb, and that's when you need to add a that. And the that is used to clarify that the book is just not showing pictures of cars polluting, but the book is showing an attribute or aspect about cars, and that happens to be that cars are polluting. Here's another example when you need a that because you have two verbs. The first verb is announced. The second verb is the would be. So to make the sentence grammatically correct, you would have to add a that. You would say the CEO announced that his retirement would be in 5 years. And the reason you have to add the that is because without the that, the sentence can actually be a little confusing. Say, for example, if you were reading this sentence or hearing just part of it and you heard the CEO announced his retirement. If for some reason you didn't see the would be in 5 years, say that was on the next page in a book, and so you read the sentence as the CEO announced his retirement, you might think that he was retiring right then and there. But if you read the CEO announced that his retirement, you know that you haven't read the full sentence because he's not announcing his retirement specifically, he's announcing an attribute or aspect about his retirement. So again, whenever you have two verbs in a row, most likely you're going to need a that to clarify, especially when you have a verb doing a verb. So in this case, when you have the announced, that's verb 1, and what he's announcing is the would be, the verb doing the verb, that's when you need a that.